Hi, this is Cathy for Trans by Deaf, and this week's topic we have been asked to discuss: would we date a transgendered person? A few weeks back we had a very similar topic, and at that time I pointed out that I have known my wife for 35 years and have been dating her ever since I first met her, and we were married 30 years ago in the temple, and we made vows at that time that we would be faithful and that we would honor and cherish her for all time and all eternity. And I have kept those vows, and for that reason I would not date another person of any kind, cis or transgendered, because I believe that I should honor the vows which I made with my wife in a temple 30 years ago. My wife and I went out on a date this last Friday night, and my wife had seen the question, and also she had seen Jenna's response to the question, and my wife said, "You know, what you ought to talk about, honey, is that you should talk about our experience of going through transition and how and what kept us together as a couple." She said, "What you have asked me to do is exactly what the root of this question is. You have asked me to change from dating a man to dating a woman, and so the question really is applicable." The thing that I would like to talk a little bit about are some of the things that have kept us together as a couple. I think the first and foremost is the love that my wife and I have for each other. Several weeks ago we were asked to talk about that, and basically my wife and I's love is on a mental, on a spiritual, and on a sexual level, and so there are many levels there, and I think that contributed to us staying together. Also, our temple vows of being married and being faithful to each other, we both have honored them, and I think that has kept us together. Now, from that point, I think a lot of the credit should be given to my wife. My wife has been a real advocate for me, and she has helped me through this transition. She has stayed with me. She has made that transition, which is difficult. The thing that I did to help her out was to give her space. After I went through the very agonizing period where I told her that I was transgender, I gave her time to think about it, and she became one of my strongest advocates for my transition and for the changes that I was going through. I realized that there were first very, very, very difficult psychological changes that I went through, and my wife at that time helped me find a counselor there in the town where we live. She then went with me, and when that counselor said that we needed to go to a counselor in Houston that specialized in transgender people, I went, and my wife supported me on that, and it supported me all the way through the counseling, through the getting hormones, and through the changes in my body, through the surgeries that I've had, and through the things that I've had. She has supported. She's been a great advocate. She has also spent hours on the computer learning the things that she should do and shouldn't do around transgender people. And I think that's what's kept us together, is her determination to learn about what I was going through and to help me very much as I was going through. Some of the problems that we've encountered along the way, which seem also almost surmountable. During the very early stages of my transition, when we were looking for counselors, both of us agreed that we should look for a religious counselor or a counselor that had the same religious background that we had to counsel us. I called everybody, including the regional social service worker, asking them if they would counsel me and my family. All of them refused, and they refused with the very simple answer: because of the high suicide rate amongst people who are transgender, we don't feel comfortable in helping you or your family. And that lack of religious support there from religious counselors that knew about being transgender has been very hard. My wife and I have talked on numerous occasions, and when we were talking about this on our date on Friday, we both agreed that we still would love to have a counselor of our faith that was trained to work in the counseling realm and would work with us, particularly with our family, to work out some of the still little idiosyncrasies that we have. Our non-religious counselor that I've been going to has been very good. She is an excellent counselor. She has helped me a great deal. But when it comes to getting me through some of the very difficult religious and knowledge-based segments of transition, she does not handle the religious part of it at all well, and her views are so different from the views and philosophies of me and my wife that it has created a lot of problems. So the first thing I would say that I would like to see are a counselor within the religious group that I belong to. The second big thing that we have had difficult time in handling, and particularly my wife, is the situation where they consider her now to be a lesbian. That bothers my wife a great deal when we are out together as a couple. We still have to work on that particular aspect of our being together all the time. She does very well with it, and she goes out with me. But when somebody brings it up, you can tell that it is very much of a sore spot to work with. I still worry somewhat as a trans woman with staying married to my wife, that at some point in time she will decide that isn't what she wants. One of the other interesting things that I think has supported us is another man in our religious group who was married and had 2 children. When his second daughter was born, his wife was given some medication and went criminally insane. He has stayed with her for over 30 years, taking care of her, making sure that they took care of her in the hospitals, and raising his kids. That example to us has helped us immensely in going through this particular phase, to stop and think there are people who have it worse than we do, and that we can adjust, and that we can become the way that we need to be, and that we can work through our problems that we have there. One of the other comments that really helped my wife and I was a video a long time ago by a trans woman by the name of Steffi. And I admire Steffi, and when I was first transitioning, I listened to all of Steffi's words of advice, and later she found a partner by the name of Stephanie, and I believe they are married now. And Stephanie talked about her experience with religion and talking to the clergy. My counselor said that one of the losses that I would take would be the loss of my religion. Instead of doing what my counselor said, I went and talked to my religious advisor, my bishop, and explained to him what was going on and talked to him about it. And he was every bit as understanding and every bit as celestial as any bishop I have ever seen. Whether this will remain as we change bishops and as we go through time, I don't know. But he has been very kind, very understanding, very helpful, and been exactly what I thought a bishop should be and what a bishop is. And he very much magnified that mantle of bishop that he has. And I am very happy with the outcome at church during my transition. And I am very thankful that Steffi made that video all those years ago talking about her experience with transition and her church, because it did make a big difference in my life when I went and talked to the bishop. I felt much more at ease. Instead of thinking that I was going to be removed from the church, kicked out of the church, I was welcomed and loved and given support that I really needed through the transition. And I think that church support has been very helpful. It has been very much different than what many of the other people who are here on YouTube feel about religion. I really believe that the religion has made a difference both in any suicidal trends and in the relationship with my wife. Well, that's what I have to say today to sum it up. I really am thankful that my wife stayed with me, that she chose to honor those temple vows that we made 30 years ago. It has made me feel good. She has been my biggest advocate, and I really appreciate really appreciate her being my advocate for me. It has been very much different than the other people who have, as soon as they've had their surgeries and been into having sex with everybody around. I have followed very carefully the guidelines of my religion as I've transitioned, and that's what's led to my acceptance there. And I feel that the conservative view of transitioning as a conservative person is very important when, for many of you who out there who may be conservative like I am, and be loyal and really want to stay with your wife and have your wife that wants to stay with her. I'm convinced if you treat your wife properly and show her love, continue to date her as you always did, continue to spend time with her, even though there are rough times there, even though those hormonal changes and surgeries and all that paperwork changes that are so demanding on you and also on your family and on your wife are there, your love for each other can bring you through. Well, thank you for listening to me this week, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye.